And here's the big one. When you're feeling that rush, that excitement about the next big thing, that's exactly when you need to slow down. That feeling? That's greed talking, not logic. I lost 65 grand chasing 3 million. Could have kept my original Bitcoin investment and been better off. But I got greedy. Don't be greedy. Look, I'm not saying don't take risks, but take smart risks. Calculated risks. Not bet the farm on internet money risks. Most importantly, if you screw up like I did, you're not dead. You can come back. Might take a few years, might suck for a while, but you can recover. That's it. That's my expensive lesson. Hope it helps you avoid learning it the hard way like I did. Now go do something smart with your money. And if you've got a story like mine, drop it in the comments. Maybe we can all learn something from each other's mistakes. The weird thing? I wasn't angry anymore. Used to drive myself crazy thinking about what could have been. Now I just accepted it. Shit happens. You learn. You move on. These days, I'm doing all right. Got my own place again, nothing fancy, but it's mine. Emergency fund sitting in a boring savings account. Investment portfolio that grows about as fast as grass. But hey, it grows. Still check Bitcoin prices sometimes. Can't help myself. When it hits new highs, I do the math on what my original investment would be worth now. It's painful, but not devastating anymore. See all these new crypto projects popping up constantly. Revolutionary blockchain technology. The next Bitcoin. Get in early before it's too late. Same promises, different names. And you know what? I feel nothing. It's like being vaccinated against stupidity. I see the marketing, I understand the appeal, but I'm immune now. Watch younger guys at work talking about meme coins and NFTs. Want to grab them by the shoulders and shake them. But I don't. Can't save everyone from themselves. Started dating again too. Found someone who doesn't think I'm an idiot for losing all that money. She actually thinks it's kind of funny. At least you have good stories, she says. So what's the deal? What am I trying to tell you with this disaster story? Don't be an idiot like me. Simple as that. Never borrow money to invest. Never put money you need into something that could disappear overnight. Never convince yourself you're smarter than everyone else just because you got lucky once. I thought I was Warren Buffett because I made money on Bitcoin. Turns out I was just some guy who got lucky and then got stupid. You want to invest in crypto? Fine. Put in money you can literally burn without caring. Money that won't change your life if it disappears. Because it might. Diversify your stuff. Don't put everything into one basket, no matter how shiny that basket looks. Spread it around. Boring is better than broke. The shame was eating me alive. Every time someone asked how I was doing, I'd just mumble something about figuring things out. What was I supposed to say? Oh, I lost everything chasing internet money. Work became this weird escape where I was also trapped. My boss, this guy named Richardson, pulls me aside one day and goes, "Jake, I don't know what's going on with you, but you need to fix it. Fast." I started delivering pizzas on weekends. 30-year-old accountant driving around in a beat-up Honda with a pizza sign on top. But hey, $20 an hour was $20 an hour. The panic attacks, though, those were the worst part. I'd be sitting in some meeting about quarterly reports, and suddenly I couldn't breathe. Had to excuse myself to the bathroom and just hyperventilate for 10 minutes. 2.5 years of this. 2.5 years of working every day, eating ramen, and watching Netflix on my parents' couch. But I got through it. By 2022, I finally paid off that last credit card. Sounds dramatic, but it felt like breaking out of prison. I could actually keep money in my checking account without immediately sending it to some debt collector. Started investing again, but different this time. Boring stuff. Index funds that track the S&P 500. Nothing flashy, nothing that promises to make me rich by Thursday. Put $50 a month into Bitcoin too. Yeah, I know, probably sounds crazy after everything. But I figured if I'm gonna be wrong about crypto, at least I won't be wrong about the biggest one. Also started writing about my screw-up online. Called it expensive lessons or something cheesy like that. People actually read it. Turns out lots of folks have lost money chasing get-rich-quick schemes. Made a few $100 a month from that blog. Not retirement money, but enough to buy groceries without checking my account balance first. The company behind EtherNext released a statement that destroyed everything. They were shutting down operations. The project was dead. The tokens were worthless. I remember reading that statement over and over again, trying to make sense of it. Due to regulatory pressure and market conditions, we are no longer able to continue development of the EtherNext protocol. That was it. Game over. My investment was worthless. Not just worth less. Worthless. I sat in my apartment, staring at my laptop screen, watching the price ticker show $0 and 0 cents. $65,000. Gone. But the real kicker? The debt was still there. The personal loan with its monthly payments. The credit card bills with their compound interest. The money I owed my parents. I owed about $40,000, and I had nothing to show for it. I had a complete mental breakdown. I'm talking full-scale panic attack, hyperventilating, the whole 9 yards. I called in sick to work for 3 days straight and just lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. Everything I had worked for was gone. My savings, my credit, my relationship with my parents, my peace of mind, my future. I had destroyed my life chasing a dream that turned out to be a nightmare. Man, those next few months? Pure hell. I'm talking about waking up at 3 a.m. with your heart pounding because you remembered you owe money you don't have. $400 a month on that loan. Credit cards charging me interest on interest. My parents asking when I'm going to pay them back. And me? I'm making maybe $2,000 a month after taxes. You do the math. It doesn't work. Had to swallow my pride and move back into my childhood bedroom. 29 years old, sleeping under the same Spider-Man poster I had in high school. Real winner, right? But then January 2019 came, and everything fell apart. It started with a blog post. Some investigative journalist had been looking into EtherNext and found some disturbing information. Apparently, the founders had been selling massive amounts of their tokens while publicly telling everyone to hold. The post detailed how the team had cashed out millions of dollars while their own community was losing money. It showed wallet addresses, transaction histories, everything. Within hours of that post going live, EtherNext dropped 40%, then 50%, then 60%. I watched my portfolio collapse in real time. Hundreds of thousands of dollars just vanishing. But I told myself this was just FUD. Fear, uncertainty, and doubt. The technology was still solid. The fundamentals hadn't changed. I held on. Then more bad news started coming out. The SEC announced they were investigating EtherNext for potential securities violations. Several major exchanges announced they were delisting the token due to regulatory concerns. The price went into freefall. $1, 75 cents, 50 cents. I was back to where I had started, but now I was $65,000 in debt. The community was in chaos. People were panicking, selling everything they had. The Telegram groups were full of people talking about suicide. The Reddit forums were full of posts about losing life savings. But the core believers, the people who had been there from the beginning, we kept holding. We kept believing. We kept telling ourselves this was just a temporary setback. We were wrong. In March 2019, EtherNext hit 25 cents. I was down to about $14,000. But the debt I had accumulated was still there. The personal loan payments, the credit card bills, the money I owed my parents. All of it still had to be paid back. Then, in April 2019, came the final blow. But I told myself this was temporary. This was just a bear market. All the fundamentals were still strong. The technology was still revolutionary. This was just a buying opportunity. So I did something that still makes me sick to think about. I bought more. In August 2018, with EtherNext trading at around $6, I made the worst financial decision of my life. I decided to double down. I maxed out my credit cards. For different cards, about $15,000 total. I also borrowed money from my parents, telling them I needed it for some business opportunity. Another $10,000. So now I had $25,000 more to invest. At $6 per token, that bought me about 4,200 more tokens. I now owned over 57,000 EtherNext tokens. My total investment was now about $65,000. But I was convinced this was smart. I was averaging down, buying more of an asset I believed in at a cheaper price. The math still worked in my head. If EtherNext went back to $18, I'd be worth over $1 million. If it went to $30 like some people were predicting, I'd be worth almost $2 million. $2 million. That was my new target. But the market had other plans. September was bad. EtherNext dropped to $4. October was worse. $3. November was a disaster. $2. I was watching my portfolio hemorrhage money every single day. But the community kept saying the same things. Hold strong. This is just market manipulation. We're going to the moon. I held, and held, and held. By December 2018, EtherNext was trading at $1.50. I was down to about $85,000. I had lost almost $900,000 from the peak. But I was still up from my original investment, right? I had put in $65,000 total, and I still had $85,000. I was still ahead. That's what I told myself. That's how I justified not selling. That night, I went out to celebrate. Went to this fancy steakhouse downtown, ordered a $100 bottle of wine, had the most expensive steak on the menu. I felt like I was living in a movie. But even then, even at the peak, I didn't sell. The community was still bullish. The technology was still revolutionary. The roadmap showed even more exciting developments coming. This is just the beginning. Everyone kept saying, wait until the next major update. Wait until mainstream adoption. We're going to $100. I believed them. I wanted to believe them. Because selling at $18 would have been admitting that the ride was over. And I wasn't ready for it to be over. I wanted more. I needed more. That greed, that inability to be satisfied with nearly $1 million in profit, that's what destroyed me. By the end of May, EtherNext had dropped to about $15. Not a huge drop, but enough to make me nervous. I told myself it was just a normal correction. All investments go up and down, right? But then June came, and the price kept sliding. $13, $12, $11. The community was still optimistic, but I could sense a change in tone. This is just weak hand selling, people were saying. Diamond hands only. We're going to the moon. I held on. I had diamond hands. I was a true believer. But then the broader crypto market started showing signs of trouble. Bitcoin was falling from its December highs. Ethereum was down. Everything was red. July was brutal. EtherNext dropped to $8. I was still up significantly from my original investment, but I had lost over $500,000 from the peak. $500,000. That's when I started having trouble sleeping. I'd wake up at 3 in the morning and check the price. Then I'd lie awake for hours, thinking about all that money I'd lost. I would just smile and say something vague about some investments doing well. I loved having this secret, this knowledge that I was about to be rich while everyone else was still stuck in the rat race. April was when EtherNext really exploded. The price went from $7 to $12 in less than 2 weeks. The crypto market was going crazy. Bitcoin was climbing again. Everything was green. I was checking my portfolio constantly. Every hour, every few minutes. Watching those numbers go up and up and up. By the end of April, EtherNext was trading at $15 per token. $15. My 53,000 tokens were worth almost $800,000. I was rich. Actually rich. Me, the guy who 6 months earlier was worried about spending my entire savings on Bitcoin. But I didn't sell. You know why? Because I was convinced it was going to keep going up. The community was talking about $20, $30. Some people were even saying $50 wasn't out of the question. I was greedy. Plain and simple. I wanted more. May 15th, 2018. I'll never forget that date. That's when EtherNext hit its all-time high of $18.37 per token. I refreshed my portfolio app and saw a number that made me dizzy. My investment was worth just over $970,000. I was less than $30,000 away from being a millionaire. A millionaire. Me, the guy who used to worry about spending $20 on lunch. I was at work when I saw that number, and I had to go to the bathroom just to compose myself. I stared at myself in the mirror and tried to process what was happening. In less than 5 months, I had turned $40,000 into almost $1 million. I was a genius. I was Warren Buffett. I was the guy who had found the next Bitcoin before everyone else. The feeling I had after hitting that buy button was incredible. It was like I had just bought a winning lottery ticket. I knew, absolutely knew, that I had just set myself up for life. I didn't tell anyone what I'd done. Not my parents, not my friends, not even Dave. This was my secret, my ticket to financial freedom. And for a while, it looked like I was absolutely right. The first few months of 2018 were absolutely incredible. EtherNext started climbing almost immediately. 80 cents, 90 cents, $1. Then it really started to pick up steam. By February, it was trading at $2.50. I was up over $100,000. $100,000. I had never seen that much money in my life. I started fantasizing about what I would do with all that money. Pay off my student loans. Buy a decent car. Maybe even put a down payment on a house. Hell, maybe I'd quit my job and trade crypto full-time. But the coin kept climbing. $3, $4, $5. The online community around EtherNext was growing every day. There were Telegram groups, Reddit forums, YouTube channels, all talking about how this was just the beginning. We're going to $100, people were saying. This is the next Ethereum. EtherNext to the moon. I was drinking it all up. Every piece of news, every price prediction, every technical analysis that confirmed what I already believed, that I was sitting on a gold mine. In March, EtherNext hit $7. I was up over $300,000. $300,000. I was practically a millionaire. I started acting different at work. I wasn't as stressed about deadlines. I was more confident in meetings. I even started dressing better, buying clothes that I would never have splurged on before. My co-workers started noticing. Jake, you seem different lately. Did you get a raise or something? But here's what really got me excited. The token economics. There were only going to be 100 million EtherNext tokens ever created. Compare that to Bitcoin's 21 million limit, and you'd think EtherNext would be worth less per token. but the utility was supposed to be so much greater. I started doing math. If EtherNext captured even 10% of Bitcoin's market cap, each token would be worth over $1,000. If it actually replaced Bitcoin as the dominant cryptocurrency, we were looking at $10,000 per token. $10,000 per token, and it was trading at 75 cents. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I couldn't think about anything else. This was it. This was my chance to get in on the ground floor of the next Bitcoin. By the time the markets opened on January 2nd, 2018, I had convinced myself that EtherNext was going to make me rich. Not just comfortable, but actually rich. I did something that still makes me cringe thinking about it. I sold all my Bitcoin. Every single Satoshi. At the time, it was worth almost $9,000. That, combined with my original $5,000 investment, gave me about $14,000 to work with. But I didn't stop there. Oh no, that would have been too smart. I went to my bank and applied for a personal loan. $25,000 at 8.5% interest. I told them it was for home improvements. They approved it in 2 days. So now I had almost $40,000. $40,000 that I was about to put into a cryptocurrency that most people had never heard of. I remember the exact moment I made that purchase. It was a Friday afternoon, and I was supposed to be working on some quarterly reports. Instead, I was sitting in my cubicle, using my phone to buy EtherNext tokens. $40,000. At 75 cents per token. That gave me just over 53,000 tokens. On December 17th, 2017, Bitcoin hit just under $20,000. I refreshed my portfolio app and saw a number I'd never seen before. My $5,000 investment was worth almost $8,000. I felt like I discovered fire, like I was part of some exclusive club of people who got it while everyone else was still living in the Stone Age. That feeling, that rush of being right about something big, it was addictive, and it was about to lead me down a path that would destroy everything. It was New Year's Eve, 2017. While everyone else was getting drunk and making resolutions they'd break by February, I was deep in some crypto forum, reading about altcoins and blockchain projects. Most of the stuff I found was garbage. Obvious scams or poorly thought out projects that would never amount to anything. But then I stumbled across something different. There was this post by a guy who claimed to be a former Goldman Sachs trader turned crypto analyst. He had this whole breakdown of why the next bull run wasn't going to be led by Bitcoin. It was going to be led by something called smart contract platforms and decentralized applications. The post was long, technical, and honestly, most of it went over my head. But the conclusion was clear. There was this new project that was supposedly going to be bigger than Bitcoin. Way bigger. The project was called EtherNext. I'm not going to use the real name because, well, you'll understand why in a minute. But according to this analysis, EtherNext was everything Bitcoin wasn't. It was faster, cheaper, more versatile. It could handle smart contracts, decentralized apps, the whole 9 yards. And it was still trading at under $1. Under $1. I spent the entire next day researching EtherNext. The team looked legit. MIT graduates, former Google engineers, people with real credentials. The technology seemed revolutionary. The roadmap was ambitious but realistic. The next day at work, I could barely concentrate. I kept thinking about Bitcoin, about the opportunity, about what it would feel like to actually have real money for once in my life. By Thursday, I'd made my decision. I was going to buy some Bitcoin. That Saturday morning, I'm sitting at my kitchen table with my laptop, heart pounding like I'm about to jump out of an airplane. The price was sitting at around $12,500. I had about $5,000 in my savings account. My emergency fund, basically. I stared at that buy button for probably 20 minutes. What if I lose it all? What if this whole thing is just a scam? What if I'm throwing away my entire safety net? But then I thought about those early investors again. The ones who took the risk when everyone else was too scared. They were living the dream now while I was stuck in my cubicle, counting other people's money. I clicked buy. $5,000. Every penny of my savings. The confirmation screen popped up, and I swear my hands were shaking. I had just bought like 0.4 Bitcoin. Didn't seem like much, but it was everything I had. Then I waited, and waited, and waited. The next few weeks were like being on the world's most intense roller coaster. Bitcoin would jump up $1,000, and I'd feel like a genius. Then it would drop 500, and I'd feel sick to my stomach. But the overall trend was up, way up. By the end of November, Bitcoin hit 15,000. I was up like $3,000. $3,000. That was more than I'd ever made from any investment in my life. December was when things got really crazy. 17,000. 18,000. 19,000. The news was talking about it. My mom was asking me about it. Everyone was suddenly a Bitcoin expert. It was a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesdays were always the worst. Dave Martinez, this guy who worked 2 cubicles over from me, comes walking up during lunch break. Now, Dave was the kind of guy who usually talked about nothing but the Bears and his fantasy football league. Not exactly the sharpest knife in the drawer, if you catch my drift. "Jake, dude, you gotta check this out," he says, practically bouncing with excitement. "There's this thing called Bitcoin, and it's going absolutely insane." I looked at him like he had 3 heads. "Bitcoin? What the hell is a Bitcoin?" "It's like digital money, man. And it's worth like 12 grand right now." $12,000? For digital money? I figured Dave had finally lost his mind. But something about the way he said it, the excitement in his voice, it stuck with me. That whole afternoon, I couldn't focus on work. All I could think about was this Bitcoin thing. That night, I went home to my crappy studio apartment and fired up my laptop. Started Googling Bitcoin. And holy shit, Dave wasn't making it up. This thing had gone from basically nothing to over $10,000 in less than a decade. $10,000. For one digital coin. I spent hours reading about it. The technology behind it, this thing called blockchain. The potential applications. The investment stories. People who bought $100 worth in 2010 and were now millionaires. Millionaires. I stayed up until like 3 in the morning, reading everything I could find. White papers, forums, news articles. My brain felt like it was going to explode from all the information. But one thing kept coming back to me. All these stories about early adopters. People who saw the potential when everyone else thought it was a joke. They were the ones getting rich while everyone else was still trying to figure out what the hell a cryptocurrency even was. You know what they say about hindsight being 20/20? Well, let me tell you something. When you're staring at a computer screen watching $3 million disappear, hindsight feels more like getting punched in the gut by a heavyweight boxer. I'm Jake, and yeah, I screwed up. Big time. But not in the way you might think. See, this isn't some sob story about a guy who bought Bitcoin at 60,000 and watched it crash. Nah, this is way worse. This is about how I had my hands on what I thought was going to be the next Bitcoin, watched it make me a millionaire, and then lost absolutely everything because I got too damn greedy. Buckle up, because this ride gets pretty ugly. Picture this. It's 2017, and I'm sitting in this soul-crushing cubicle at Henderson & Associates, some boring accounting firm in downtown Chicago. You know those office buildings where the air conditioning is always broken and the coffee tastes like it was made with dirty socks? Yeah, that was my life. I'd been there for 3 years, making okay money. Not great, not terrible, just okay. The kind of paycheck that lets you pay your bills and maybe go out for drinks on Friday, but nothing that's going to change your life. Every morning, same routine. Wake up at 7, grab coffee from the bodega on the corner because their coffee was somehow worse than the office coffee, walk 12 blocks to work, and then stare at spreadsheets until my eyes bled. Man, I was dying inside. You ever feel like you're sleepwalking through your own life? That was me, 28 years old, and already feeling like I was stuck in quicksand. But then something happened that would change everything. And I mean everything.